Hello, I'm Jennifer Azzi, Associate Vice President for Engagement at USF. Thank you for joining us today at the first virtual Silk Speaker Series at the University of San Francisco, made possible by our generous benefactor, USF trustee and alumnus Jeff Silk, and his wife, Naomi Silk. The purpose of this conversation goes to the heart of USF's mission as a Jesuit institution, to honor excellence and to promote knowledge and dialogue on the most pressing issues of our time. Today, amidst a global health pandemic that is causing disproportionate suffering and death in communities of color, we are also struggling as a society to balance our ideals with the pervasive reality of systematic racism. I am so honored today to join two personal heroes, both of whom have been living the mission day after day for years. Stephan Curry is a 6-time NBA All-Star, 2-time MVP, and 3-time NBA champion with the Golden State Warriors. Stephan and his wife, Aisha, have been tremendous leaders for social justice and humanitarian causes and public advocates in the community. Together, they founded Eat.Learn.Play, a foundation which mobilizes support for 3 vital pillars for healthy childhood: nutrition, education, and physical activity, in Oakland, the San Francisco Bay Area, and across the country. For those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Jones, you are about to meet a national treasure, an icon of the Black freedom movement in the United States. He has been a leading voice for justice and civil rights for over 6 decades. He served as Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s lawyer, strategic advisor, and speechwriter. He drafted the first 7 paragraphs of Dr. King's Ionic I Have a Dream speech. Dr. Jones and Steph, I'm so honored to know each of you, and thank you guys for sharing your time today. So before I jump into questions, I wanted just to announce something that I am so grateful for. Stephan, I can't thank you and Aisha enough for generously issuing a fundraising challenge and matching donation to support the USF Institute for Nonviolence and Social Justice, directed by our very own Dr. Clarence Jones. And so now on to our dialogue here. You know, for both of you, I mean, our country has been profoundly shaken by the horrific killing of George Floyd. And here we are today after countless mass protests in cities throughout the world. You know, and as Dr. Jones, you say, we're at a tipping point. And so I'll start with you, Steph. Why do you feel this moment is resonating so broadly, and what are your hopes for change that this moment in time will lead to?
I appreciate the introduction, appreciate the time to you, Jennifer, and Dr. Jones. To answer your question, I think a lot of this is the sense of urgency in the moment to know this has been the culmination of 400 years of injustices and a system that is not working for all people in this country. And as you kind of see the visuals of, cell phone recordings of police brutality, of social and racial injustices everywhere, there's too many examples to count at this point. And it took a perfect storm of 2 viruses, 2 pandemics at one time to grab everybody's attention. We're obviously dealing with COVID, and there's shelters in place everywhere, and families are dealing with that, threat to our society. But that has, I think, just opened up a conversation and an awareness level for all people of what's been happening, and now it's just being recorded and being shared more and more frequently, unfortunately. And so I hope that the conversation continues, that this isn't just a moment but a movement, and that we find tangible actions that everyone can play their role and play their part to help change. And I think that's what this moment is. That's why we are here today. That's why the conversation at large is what it is, and we want to see change now. Like that's important.
And Clarence, what do you think, just even the differences between now and when Dr. King peacefully challenged America to come together 60 years ago? What are some of the similarities and differences, and why is this so big right now?
Well, it's quite extraordinary. Before I go further, though, I want to go on the record as expressing my profound gratitude and admiration for Stephan and his wife and their support of our work at the Institute and the work in Oakland. I think the thing that's so shocking to me, and I'm going to have to reveal, I'm 89 years old. 6 months, God willing, I'll be 90. So I simply cannot believe, I cannot believe that here I am in 220 and I'm seeing a similar scenario of what went on 50 to 60 years ago, some of which we tried to change. So it's reminiscent, in his speech at the March on Washington, Dr. King asked rhetorically, he says, he's speaking rhetorically, he says, people want to know what we want and so forth. He says, we're not going to be quiet. We can't be quiet until there's no more police brutality of killing our people. That's a paraphrase. That's in August 28th, 1963, Wednesday, in Washington, D.C. See, here we are. Apart from my standpoint, it's clear to me that we have to continue the whatever achievements we modestly achieved or thought we achieved, that they were not sufficient. They were sufficient at laying a platform so that today's mantra for all of you, and my young, I'll adopt him as my son. I hope his parents won't get like a godson of mine, and the members of his team, of the warriors. We have to keep on. We have to, now is not the time to give up. In fact, I'm speaking personally, and I'm speaking in a representative capacity of the Institute. I don't believe we will achieve the fundamental change on the issue of ending police brutality unless the protests get larger and larger and last longer and longer and larger and larger and longer and longer until finally the government and the country understands. Stop it. It's enough. Stop killing us.
We know, Clarence.
By the way, I would be less. When we in the movement tour in March on Washington, we had maybe 25% of the march participants were white. Well, guess what? Mm-hmm. Guess what? The overwhelming, African Americans only constitute about 12 or 13% of the population. Guess what? The overwhelming majority of the protests are white people. Look at those pictures. They're white people. And these are white, and this is amazing. Just amazing.
That's the thing that when you and I spoke after we took our 3-year-old son to one of the marches, and that was the thing that I remember you saying. And, my son is 3 and he now wakes up and he says, Black Lives Matter. And, it's this, and I had a glimpse of the 60s last couple of years, but it's different in that it's everybody I feel like is tired of it. Steph, is that what you're seeing with your, you have had your daughter at one of the marches in Palo Alto, and how are you feeling this is affecting your children?
No, absolutely. You're right. I mean, I don't, in my lifetime, obviously, this is the most impactful moment I think that we've all experienced, and it's really tangible, the participation at this point. To Dr. Jones's point about this, being able to sustain this energy, this momentum, continue to, infiltrate every conversation, personally, professionally, in the corporate world, and of government, like that these conversations are happening widespread, that everybody is participating on, whether you're in the Black community, whether you're in the white community, whatever it is that you are getting uncomfortable with this conversation, that you are assessing your everyday life to know where are my inherent prejudices, where are the places where I kind of turn a blind eye, where can I really get engaged on a material level, whether it's my time or my money or lending a voice to people that can't speak for themselves. So we need everybody to be uncomfortable. And to your point, I went to a protest in East Palo Alto this month, and we had an opportunity to bring our 7-year-old daughter. And she knew who George Floyd was. We got there, and she started asking questions as people were giving speeches. And as we started to march, she continued to ask questions about, why are we here? What does this mean? What are we trying to accomplish? And trying to break that down to a 7-year-old, you're trying to, be truthful, be honest about what the situation is, but hopefully provide hope that she can be a part of the change that needs to happen as she continues to get older. And there was so much representation, of all different backgrounds out there, and we need to continue that going forward. And it's been awesome to see, but we know how much work there is to be done. And to not get discouraged if you don't feel, any different in a month from now. That means the work needs to continue to happen.
Well, I think that is the difference, is that there's a lot of work to be done. And, Clarence, one of the things, you and I also talked about is that racism and bias is a learned behavior. And so the more we can teach our kids, to see the world, to see everyone equally, it matters a lot. And so, just Clarence, how would you even advise, Stephan, his role and, kind of in sort of where to take this next?
Well, thank you for the question, Jennifer. First of all, Steph doesn't need my advice.
We all need your advice.
No, we all need your advice.
I want to say,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm welcome, but you're blessed by having a certain instinct separate and apart from so-called Dr. Jones, instincts of decency and fairness. I guess as you grew up, and certainly in competitive sports. But I think what we're facing here, everyone, is people are trying to say in their own different ways, we are better than this. They're trying to say we want to reclaim the soul of America. We're talking about being, quote, politically correct. It's about being morally relevant. It doesn't matter what your political party is. It doesn't matter what color you are. It just doesn't matter. There's a commonality in human beings. There's a commonality in our nation that each one of us in our own individual way, when we speak individually, we would speak collectively for the country we're in. And we speak together, such as we are in the demonstrations and marches across the country. The people are saying, this is a country. It is morally not right. We are a country that has decent values. Some of us may be politically left, some of us may be Democrats, some of us may be Republican, some of us may all renew. Doesn't matter. There's a commonality of decency. And I think that's what's being stoked here. I think that's what people sense. People sense that this is not only different than what's happened in the past, but also reflects an impatience that how can we come so far and look back and we're still repeating the mistakes of the past? I hear that in one form or another. Young people can't believe that after all the things they read about, they weren't there for them, but all the things they read about, all the things they were taught to believe. You mean to tell me this is going on in our country today? And so it's like a collective moral uprising. It's saying, this famous movie was done network with a man, the broadcaster says, I'm mad as hell because I'm on a balcony and I'm not going to take this anymore. Okay, because his news show was being canceled. Well, the American people are mad as hell. And they're saying, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to simply stand by idly and see our Black and brown brothers and sisters killed needlessly by the police. We're just not going to do that anymore.
Well, I think one of the biggest, differences now between now and the 16th is social media. So you have, the light has been shined on this like never before. And I think that's why, the everyday person, regardless of political affiliation, or this is universal, and you see something that's just so wrong. And so, Steph, I just want to kind of talk a little bit about the power of social media and also the role of athletes in, being able to help, kind of get messages out and have platforms.
For sure. I think a lot of people have spoken about what the influence of social media has been on our culture, positively and negatively. And there's obviously some negatives that come with it, but the positives are way outreaching in terms of exposing people, for who and what they are, being able to rally around a movement like this where you can use your reach and your voice and your platform and that medium to speak your mind, and it doesn't have to go through any other third party. It's what you want to say when you want to say it, and that can motivate somebody else to be bold in their speech. The concern is that it only stays there, right? So like as we talk about, guys and girls and men and women using their platforms to have post the videos and share what their messages are and have those conversations on social media. That is a huge part of the awareness. That's a huge part of continuing this conversation, but it cannot stop there. I think we're all trying to find how we can most be impactful, again, with our money, with our time, being able to support people who are on the ground and are real life activists that are doing this work 24/7, 365, and like finding, those heroes that are connected to the community, are connected to speaking for those that are, the victim of these injustices and making a true difference. So that's what the process that I'm on right now, and trying to obviously talk to experienced people that know what they're doing, what they're talking about, point you in the right direction. But you have to have that, you got to invest into that. And that's something that, it's not just winning the social media contest of who can say the right things and who can be the loudest. That's a huge part of it. But this generation, I think, and especially some of the young people that I've met at protests and just in passing, I think they have that perspective and they understand that this generation can be the change and can be the ones that plant their flag in the ground that says we're not going to accept this anymore, and at all costs it's going to change.
And Steph, if I may just, what's amazing is that I have been, I still continue to be the beneficiary of the relationship I had with Martin King, Dr. King. And as a consequence of that, not because of Clarence B. Jones, or an adjunct professor at the University of San Francisco, being director of the Institute for Nonviolence, but just because they tracked me down and figured, first of all, I'm still alive. And so I'm amazed. I get but just without naming names, except I can tell you that some in the NFL, for example, some of the country's top football players, in this case, I'll just say quarterbacks, okay? I mean, they were household names, all right, would reach out to me, not for Clarence Jones, reach out to me because of the derivative relationship I had with Martin Luther King Jr. And they say very much the same thing that we are all saying. And they are struggling to find a way consistent within the constraints of their professional relationship. They want to make it meaningful. And you see the same thing with your colleague LeBron James doing the same thing. And I must say, I have a new affection for Steve Kerr.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot when I went to the Warriors, when you guys hosted me and you honored me so much. I forgot that Steve Kerr that played in the Chicago and was part of the Michael Jordan. So when I saw the thing on Michael Jordan, and I saw Steve Kerr. I said, that dude is a bad dude. Not only was he a superb basketball player, but as I can see. And then, of course, I felt so inadequate that I didn't say anything about his father. I didn't know him personally, but I admired his father. I even corresponded with his father. So those of you who don't know, Steve Kerr's father was the president of Beirut University in Lebanon, and he was assassinated. Well, I didn't even know that this was his son.
Wow.
And I feel so inadequate that I didn't express anything to Steve. So will you please give them that message for me?
Absolutely,
Stephan?
I would definitely do that.
Okay.
I know he'll appreciate it for sure.
Yeah. So Jennifer.
Yes. Yeah, I'm here.
So I think that you and I only have briefly talked about it, but with the conversations we've had, there's clearly something new afoot here. And I have, by longevity, of course, I have a longer perspective. But I can tell you, I don't want you to pass over so quickly what I said. It is the most profound change I have ever seen in any social movement in my lifetime, when I have seen the large number of members of what classically would be called the majority population, white people. Okay, when I see young white men and young white girls saying Black Lives Matter, I'm saying, now come on now, what is going on? I mean, they're not. I mean, they're saying it out of the sincerity and the depth. They're not grandstanding. That's not some joke to them. This is serious. And you can see it by the way they conduct themselves. You can see it in the warmth that they feel to express toward one another and to members of the African American community. Now, one of the things we have to be careful of, well, I want to advise you to be very careful of. In large movements like this, you always run the risk of what I call the agent provocateur. You're going to have some small group sometimes who participates, and they want to commit or incite an act of violence, or they want to pull the movement in a direction which is, it may have some valuable social context elsewhere, but has very little to do with what we're trying to do. And sometimes these people are so committed, in quotes, that they will try to pull hard the nonviolent mass movement in a direction that it should not go, and that direction is toward a direction of violence. This movement cannot be. Listen, that a Wendy's burned down. I'm not happy about that. I don't know how the fire occurred in Georgia and when other things happened, but I want to make it very clear. Those of us who say no justice, no peace, we want peaceful justice. We're not talking about violence. We're talking about, we're talking about something called redemptive love. That's what we're talking about. That's what our movement was led on, the ability to love that person who may have been a racist, but love that person, to let him come and join us, come and see that you want to be with us. You can make the country good just as we are.
Well, and I think, Clarence, as I'm hearing you speak too, and I think of Steph, and I think of, just watching you play my favorite sport, and, just the way you conduct yourself, both you and Aisha and your family, you just exude positivity and joy. And so just thinking about, the movement that's going on, how do you feel, what do you feel your role is as things progress?
That's a great question, because I think it's multifaceted for sure. We have, as athletes in the position that I'm in, knowing the resources we have available, the way that we can be able to connect dots and connect people, connect similar interests and missions, and just enhance them. I think that's going to take many, different shapes and forms as we kind of go through this process of the action behind it. So from my standpoint, it's holding everybody around me accountable to follow in suit. And it may look different for how they do it, but when it comes to my brand partners, when it comes to people that I come across in our organization, when it comes to our foundation, when it comes to everything that I do, they need to, like Clarence said, spread love and positivity to anybody in any walk of life. But they have to have an action and perspective of how they interacting with the Black community, how are they investing in Black communities, how are they, like I said, checking their prejudice at the door and saying, are we listening, and are we empathetic to, our experience? And that is the continual change that will happen, because it's not going to be an overnight thing where you can just rectify 400 years of injustices. So from my standpoint, I'm trying to create a program and a platform of questions that I'm asking every single person that I do business with, that I have personal relationships with, that will hopefully inspire them to carry that torch and do it in their own circles. And we can kind of have a little wildfire spread like that. So those are tangible steps. And then as we kind of look ahead, being bold and understanding the power that we have. Like you said, there's so many guys in the NBA, my colleagues, that do amazing work consistently. And then, in a situation like this, it ramps up heavy. You might not see, it front and center, but guys are invested in their communities and their families, and understanding that our experience may be different because we're in the league and they see us in bright lights and with jerseys on. But we're like the unicorns. We have people all around us that don't have those privileges and those benefits to get the benefit of the doubt in many situations. And so we feel that, and this generation of athlete is very responsible and accountable to the collective, their fans, their families, and all that type of stuff. And so I'm proud to be a part of that movement. And that's the mission right now.
Well, just thinking about it, this is not an NBA versus NFL thing, but just thinking, it's just recently that the NFL came out and acknowledged Black Lives Matter, and I feel like the NBA, just having been a part of the NBA family for so many years, that the NBA has always been very supportive of its players. And it just feels like the culture of the NBA right now is very powerful in this movement.
Absolutely. And that's been a consistent thing. I actually texted somebody, one of the executives in the league office yesterday, and committed them on that effort, and encouraging them to continue listening to the players, continuing to hear what we're saying. And even in a situation now where, you're talking about should basketball come back or not, because you don't want to distract from the movement that's happening and the discussions that need to be continued. We don't want anybody to take their mind off of it. How you sit across the table from the players and really, again, listen, hear, understand, provide feedback, work together. It's a very collaborative thing. And so, the next step is now, how do we get more representation, right? So that's like the biggest thing in terms of, from a coaching perspective, from a general manager perspective, from league owners. And this is basketball being a microcosm of culture in general. We need more representation in every industry, in every position of power and leadership, that our voices are heard in a much more meaningful way. Because I think you can look at most powerful organizations, companies, entities in the United States, and the mass majority are going to be led by white men that are in positions of power, and we have to figure out how to purposefully change that as we continue to grow, so that there's a trickle down effect.
Well, and if you look at Clarence, can I jump in on this, Clarence? Because even looking at just the media right now, you see so many wonderful Black men, African-American women, men in these incredible positions, leadership positions, that we need more visibility, right? It's like everybody needs a role model. So to your point, I think the more visibility, the better. And the more young kids can dream about, oh, I can do that. And there's going to be no barriers. Yeah. So Clarence, you were going to jump in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because to say something, I've said repeatedly during the course of our discussion about how moved I am by the number of white people. And so I want to drill down a little deeper so you understand why I say that. I say that because, and it's beyond the time scope of what we're going to talk about, but the simple historical fact is that the country we have today is the successor country to the institution of slavery and the ideology of white supremacy, okay? America is the successor nation of the legacy of slavery and the institution that everything was white, was good and powerful. Now, why do I say that is important? Because power in the history of our country has almost virtually continually and exclusively been in the hands of white people, okay? Now that is not an arguable fact. That's simply, that's like breathing air. And so the reason why I'm so touched when I see these white people coming out, I'm saying, these are the sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters of the people who control the power that created the whole institution of slavery and so many years of unpaid labor that we contributed. So that's the reason to me, when I look at you, for example, Jennifer, I think, and you and I have talked about this, what I'm saying to you is what I'm going to say, I'm looking at you and I said, now this I've asked Jennifer, where do you come from? Now I've got to know Jennifer and her family. So I put it in political ethnic terms. This is a white Southern girl from Tennessee. That's who she is. White Southern girl from Tennessee. And by the way, I had a chance to meet her parents. I met her father, okay? And so I've seen, I don't know everything in Jennifer and her journey, but I know the journey that she has made as a woman and as a sports figure and the values that she's been able to achieve. So when, for example, a white Jennifer Acey speaks out, it carries great weight. When she speaks out, she may not have all the stuff that I've done in the civil rights movement, all that stuff, that's not necessary. When she speaks out in a representative capacity. And that's why it's so beautiful that you're on this with us, Jennifer, that you're with us. Those of you who know your history, I'm so blessed. I'm fighting for your parents, man. I'm trying to make you adopted. I'm going to adopt you like I adopt Stephan Curry.
I'll take
Jennifer's parents. His father's kick ass. He's a bad dude, man.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what. He's watching, and I'm sure he's gonna donate. I'm putting pressure on him right now to the Institute. But Steph, I don't know if you could share a little bit more about the work that your foundation is doing, the work that you and Aisha are doing.
I'll explain it, and I'm gonna actually try to lead up to a follow-up to what Dr. Jones just said, because in terms of having voices from both sides of the conversation, and from an experience standpoint, where you might not be able to speak on the experience of a Black person in this country, but you have empathy for what you know, what you've learned, what you've heard, what you've seen. and it means something to you to speak on behalf of a group of people that need it, and to say it lightly. But like for Eat, Learn, Play, me and my wife have been fortunate enough to have the ability to put together a foundation to support our young people of Oakland and the greater Bay Area around three very important pillars: nutrition, active and healthy lifestyles, and continued education, college completion. And so a lot of these are addressing issues that, issues for forever, but now have been accelerated and enhanced because of COVID. And we're kind of contextualizing them now in the conversations around, police brutality and crazy lending practices, and, a lack of investment in education in general in certain underserved communities and the majority Black communities. So that work for us is very rewarding, and we're going to continue on that mission for as long as we can. We have a lot of great, like-minded people that are helping. And I was kind of leading to the question, Dr. Jones, around like, what do we do when we have people with, crazy megaphones, whether in the White House or whether they're in other positions, and they're white guys talking about they don't believe that systematic racism exists. Like, they're not even acknowledging the problem, and it's almost like people they know they have their ear, and so they're saying these things where they know that they may not believe them, but they're trying to continue to promote fear and power and whatnot. Like, how do we even address the issue if it's not even being acknowledged by people that are in power?
Jennifer knows this. Although I was raised Catholic church from 6 to 14, particularly I was raised in a Catholic boarding school for indigent colored boys and Indians. So I can tell you something. My being involved in the civil rights movement, particularly after I met Dr. King and I saw the way in which he spoke to the very person you described, and would counsel us, particularly me, because he knew I was not committed to nonviolence initially. So he had to control me and, be sure that I behaved in an appropriate way. But what we're required to do is, I think, put on the combination of the Baptist Catholic Church approach. Every sinner can be redeemed. Nobody is beyond the scope of redemption. All right? So as much as we have to put up, particularly on social media, with people white people who will say crazy things, nasty things, racist things. Now listen to what I'm going to say. And I know it's hard what I'm going to say to you. You have to look at what they say and try to separate it. And remember that they too are a human being. They're racist, okay? Get me where I'm going now. They're racist, and if you're really interested in reaching somebody's soul, you got to say that you have the capacity to love them even though you don't agree with what they say. You know what I'm saying? You may want to say what that person said, but you can't give up on them. We have to. You say, well, why should it be? Well, what is my job? Why should I have to be the one? Well, that's what comes with being a decent person. There's a certain kind of burdens that come with people who are morally committed to something. When you're morally committed to something, you can't just be a little bit morally committed, I have had some racist things said to me in my face. If I didn't know that sometimes I was in a representative capacity, I'd kick the dude down, And I'm saying, well, what is that going to achieve? So all I'm saying is that particularly, I'm speaking to you in a representative, Stephan, I don't mean just you, but
Right.
particularly persons like, members of your team, other members of other teams in sports. However it got there, America is just crazy about sports. Okay. And however it got there, I didn't even know however it got there. But today, a large part of the majority of, maybe a majority of players in the NBA, but I know in the NFL, there's no question about it, 67% of the players in the NFL are African American. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the NBA and the NFL, but they're the games that America loves. America loves. And because America loves it, I know you got enough to carry on your shoulders. But what sometimes you may have to restrain your own anger and say, the Lord put me in this fortunate position.
Every day.
So, you know what I'm saying? Lord put me in this position, and I'm going to see if I can reach out to this crazy fool with love and see if I can reach him. I'm going to assume that he has a soul. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
His soul and head may be so messed up with white racism and white supremacy. Okay? But we can't give up on him.
Well, and I think Clarence, I look at Steph and Aisha, and I think how much you both you walk the talk, and thinking about, just even your matching donation that you're giving to the University of San Francisco, Clarence, to help the Institute of Nonviolence and Social Justice. So even putting funds towards programs and things that are going to transform the lives of our youth so that they'll be better educated and then can carry the torch, when we're all long gone. So, Clarence, I'm sure you would also like to thank Steph again.
I want the record. I haven't in this dialogue. Mm-hmm. So I want, as I used to say in my profession, I want the record to reflect. I want the record to reflect that over and above the initial personal admiration I developed when I met him some time ago, Steph, I'm speaking to you and your wife now. You're just here.
I'm representing.
You're representing.
You're representing. You're speaking. I'm speaking to both of you. Okay, and so I'm saying, with the most profound gratitude and admiration for the support you've not only give to Oakland, but you've given specifically to the Institute, which I try to head as carrying on the legacy of Dr. King. So as I said, I want the record to publicly reflect, and everybody that hear me publicly, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And, what can I tell you, brother? I don't want your parents to be offended, your relatives to be offended. I love you, man. I
appreciate that.
You have to go and tell everybody, Dr. Jones put a heavy burden on me. Now he's gonna make me his godson. I got enough to carry.
My family grew.
I don't need that burden.
That's all it was. My family grew a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Well, speaking of family, would each of you mind sharing your experiences growing up as African American men in very different generations? Maybe Steph, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, from my childhood, I was introduced pretty early from my parents' upbringing. Growing up in rural Virginia, racism was heavy and high and prevalent in their experiences with their families. And in Charlotte, where I was growing up, it was kind of I was on the fence type of situation because I was surrounded by it, but I didn't really experience it as much because my dad was playing in the NBA, and honestly, there was a certain benefit that came to that in terms of how people interacted with us, whether, like Dr. Jones said, their soul was in a different place, but sports sometimes took it to a place where they could put it aside for a second and treat my dad and my family with a level of respect that you could kind of feel, but then you never knew what was going to happen as soon as your back turned, type of vibe. And that was always very apparent in my childhood, but I was always reminded, whether it's talking to my parents or my aunts and uncles or grandparents who we lived, a short drive from our extended family, that this was their experience. And I've had countless family members get, trapped in the judicial system, with, unfair convictions and lengthy sentences that didn't fit the crime, and being put into the system, countless times, and heard their stories and still feel them today. Still get texts from my cousins who live back in Virginia that their life was extremely altered by being targeted, being prejudiced, being racially stereotyped. And although I don't have a personal experience of being pulled over or unjustly, or I have had countless other experiences of getting, a pass if I have, been in that type of situation, because they recognize who I am. That's a very uncomfortable place to be, because I know how I'm one of few, and it's not a great place to be where you're trying to continue to make a difference. So my parents did an amazing job explaining at an early age that, although they could shield me from a lot, that this is real, and was a part of their experience, and to not forget that. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, what my childhood and has given me the ability to take this seriously in the position that I'm in.
Well, I think what's wonderful about you, Steph, too, is your ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Because I think a lot of people that achieve your level of success may not have that same ability, especially if, as you said, maybe you personally didn't have the same experience, but you can see it in a family member or a friend, or you just can see it on the news and just know how wrong it is. So, I mean, I know, the country appreciates you and your leadership, I think, far more than you could even realize. And, so just to take it back to Clarence, I know you shared a story about a little bit about your childhood and kind of some transformational things that happened there. Would you mind sharing a little bit there?
Yeah, sure. I don't have a problem. Is that, well, I was an only child. My parents were domestic household servants. And when I was born, my God, 1931, January, they didn't have a house of their own. So I lived in the servants' quarters of where they worked with them. And I grew up and lived in the servants' quarters till the age of 6. Sometime during the age of 6, for about a year, one time they put me out with another family to stay with. And so from the age of 6 to 14, the age of 6, my parents put me in a Catholic boarding school run by the order of, the Blessed Sacrament. And on the plaque to the entrance of the boarding school, it had a school for indigent colored boys and Indians, because 30% of the students I went to school with were Indians from New Mexico and Arizona, from the reservations that the Catholic order had sent east. This boarding school, which was in northeastern Philadelphia, northeastern Pennsylvania. And so, quite frankly, from the age of 6 to 14, I was rather sheltered, except during those instances when I would be with my parents during the summer. And one instance is, I remember being with my parents down at a place called Longport, New Jersey, south in Atlantic City. And I had used the bicycle of the grandson of the man of my parents, the grandson of the people who my parents worked for, and rode into the nearby town to buy some candy. And I found myself soon surrounded by white boys, particularly after I came out of the store. And they were calling me names I had never heard before. They called me a nigger. They called me a monkey. They called me Sambo, gorilla. all sorts of derogatory things. And as they were riding, threatening to come, I thought threatening, so I rode very fast to get back to my compound where my parents worked. And I walked in the compound and I'm yelling, I'm crying to my parents because I'm scared. And I tell my mother what had happened. And she, I thought rather unsympathetically, she says, come over here and look in that mirror, boy. And so she puts me in front of the mirror and she says, tell me, what do you see? And so I say, I'm crying. I'm saying, Mama, I see you. I see me. No. She says, tell me, what do you see? And I'm kind of confused. I say, Mama, I see you. I see me. No, she says, tell me, what do you see? And I'm really confused and I'm crying more. And then she says, pay no mind what those white boys said to you. What you see is the most beautiful thing that God has created. You are beautiful. Mama loves you. God loves you. Don't you pay no mind what those boys said to you. You are beautiful. Now, when that's said to a 10-year-old boy, you hear me? I'm going to be, in less than 6 months, I'm going to be 90 years old, God willing. And that stands with me every day that I get up. And then later on, when I met the baddest living dude that ever walked the earth, Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. said to me in Albany, Georgia, in 1962, we were sharing a room, and as I was taking off my clothes, and he was sitting on one of these twin beds, he started saying, he says, Clarence, you and Stanley, he's talking about Stanley Levison, a white lawyer. He says, you and Stanley, you are really wintertime soldiers. So I said, well, I don't understand what you mean. He says, no. He says, anybody can stand with you in the warm sunlight of an August summer, but only a wintertime soldier stands with you at midnight in the alpine chill of winter. But when I said that, I started to cry. I said, Martin, I don't think that's quite me. He says, no. I know you drink too many martinis. I know you're that, but you're still a wintertime soldier, Well, I never forgot that. And I know that you see those white people walking in those, they're wintertime soldiers. You understand that? Mm-hmm. Stephan Curry, you and Alicia are wintertime soldiers. You understand that? You don't have to. I mean, you can just go and play basketball. Make money, enjoy it. You don't have to do all that. You got, tell them to go enjoy yourself. You don't have to pay all this attention. You don't have to be on the phone with this crazy man, Clarence Jones. You don't have to deal with, the people in Oakland, they'll get along without you. They don't, why you have to worry about the people in Oakland? They didn't ask for you to come over there. Go and mind your own business. You can't do that. You can't do that because you have something so beautiful in you from your experience, from your grandparents, from your parents, a sense of deep decency. You didn't need Clarence Jones to tell you that. Your teammates have told you that. You've seen that. People who look at you and know that you're just not another good basketball player. You're a good basketball player with a soul and a heart who cares about the least of these.
So, Clarence, I cannot agree with you more. And I look at Steph and I think about, just the impact that he's having, and that, his wife, family, the role modeling. And, I was thinking about this conversation today and being here with the two of you and just thinking I'm just truly honored to be a part of this with both of you, with the history, Clarence, that you have, the heart and soul of Steph. And, I know a lot of people watching probably wonder what they can do. What can, the average white person, black person, no matter what the color of your skin, your age, your, you know, what, I'll start with you, Steph. Like, what do you feel like people at home can do?
I mean, it's a great question. I think the first important thing we all can do is, like Clarence said so eloquently this entire time, is just love each other and treat each other the way that we want to be treated. And that is the seed that is planted, that we can approach every interaction with, that should set the tone for how you speak to somebody, you know, what your intentions are and what type of change you're trying to make. And so starting from that point, even in tough conversations where it might get a little, you know, confrontational, hostile, and people might dig in, you still, like you said, love them.
Right.
Cherish the human interaction. I think we're all searching for humanity in this conversation. So that, first and foremost, the acknowledgement that there are issues that predate anybody that's on this earth right now, that we are living in that reality. So acknowledging the history of this that is prevalent, whether you realize every step of it or every level of it or not, you have to acknowledge that it is real, that it is impactful, and that there are people that are subject to this on a daily basis, and their lives are being altered. So that acknowledgement, I think, is huge. And then when it comes to action, like, we all can be useful and impactful in that, no matter how loud your megaphone is. Reaching out to your local authorities, you know, your mayors, your governors, your district attorneys, your police chiefs, letting them know how you feel. Like, we had there's a platform on police reform and reaching out to, it's obviously such a city and local point of, you know, interaction and point of control for these governing bodies. Like, we have to be able to use our voice to reach out to, you know, these people in charge, to hold them accountable. Once, you know, you speak your mind as a collective that raises the issue and you put it in front of them, now they're on the hook to decide, plant their flag, which side of the conversation you're on. I think that the biggest thing for us is everybody's, like I said earlier, exposed right now. You need to speak, you need to say something.
Right.
And again, even if you don't have those experiences, after you say, you know, it's about love, it's about inclusivity, it's about equality, it's about, you know, humanity, at that point, then you can listen and hear, what are the issues, what are people saying. And I think that's been really productive these past, you know, this entire month, and since you know, the protests have begun and all that type of thing. So from that point, I'm sure, from, you know, in terms of reaching out to, again, to experts and activists that are in your local community that you may not know of right now, that are doing amazing work, organizations like you guys have at USF, and the way that, you know, these collectives are coming together to fight for people that can't fight for themselves. We all need to support them, to send them resources, to make this a consistent thing where it's not just, oh, I'm reaching in my pocket when, you know, you see another unjust killing. This is a part of my life and my the way that I plan out, you know, just like I'm gonna plan out my outfit, I'm planning out which organization am I supporting. Even if I don't have the money, maybe I'm volunteering time, maybe I'm again sending in, you know, it doesn't cost any money to send in an email, send in a letter, like all those type of things. You can continue to act, and not just now, not just 3 months from now, not just 6 months from now, but this has to be an evergreen effort for everybody.
And I would assume also voting is at the top of your list, probably.
That part too, register.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
Let me just say, for the record, I want to be on record with you, Steph, and your wife. I want you to give her this message: is that whatever is permissible in this pandemic, or when it dies down, I want you to know that you can call on me anytime you believe I can be helpful to anything that you're doing. Now I'll tell you what to do this. I want to be sure that Jennifer stays in the loop. So you,
Thanks.
so you get in touch with Jennifer, but she has all my contact information. The point I'm trying to say to you, speaking directly to you, okay, I'm here for you. Okay,
I appreciate that.
right? Yeah,
More than you know.
right? I'm serious as a heart attack, brother. You know what I'm saying? I mean that.
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you, I appreciate, when I hear and having, met both of you at different times and admiring you so much, but the common thread is how much you both love, how much you have this spirit of faith, and that, love is never wrong. That's never the wrong way to live your life. And so I think, just to see the connection between the two of you and this great legacy of Martin Luther King, kind of the torch being passed, if you will, is pretty incredible. And I think this time we have more louder megaphones than the one that you're talking about, that I think we can really together make a difference. So I have to unfortunately go to the last question. I could talk to both of you for like hours and hours, but just as we think about at the University of San Francisco, and educating our students, and that's the primary role of the university, and educating leaders that go in and do good in the world. I mean, that's why I'm at USF. That's why Clarence is at USF. It's a place where your life becomes the mission of doing good and loving the world and making change. And so I'll start, Steph, with you. What advice would you have for our students and for our community? What can they do moving forward?
I think the biggest thing is just knowing how tangible this moment is. I mean, you're still young and you still have a lot of life ahead of you, a lot of time to figure it out. But this is a great time to be alive. That's what I would say. And in terms of to earlier point around the kind of outlandish idea that in 2020 we're still dealing with a majority of the issues that Dr. King, Dr. Jones, you guys were on the ground, feet on the pavement, doing the work, dealing with the system and the backlash, and risking your lives and on a daily basis to do God's work to create change. You guys have set the platform for this generation to take all the advancements and the way that this world has kind of shrunk in terms of how impactful George Floyd's death has been on the entire world, and calling people to action. So embrace this opportunity to use whatever God has given you, whatever platform, whatever passion, whatever drive that you have, but to try to better the person next to you, and that will take you a long way, because there's no selfish ambition in any of this. It's all about making a better experience for our kids and for their children, and we have the ability to do that. And did not get discouraged how long of a process this is going to be for everybody, because I could think even a couple weeks into the protest, there's already a kind of consistent message I'm hearing from people that are on the ground, like, this is hard work because you're trying to change people's, you said it very well, Dr. Jones, people's souls and the way that they see other human beings. Right. And that is that's a tall task, but we are all on that same mission. And I'm excited to see what this next generation does as they enter their own. The people that I got to walk with left and right at the protest, young men and women of all ages, and it gave me hope for sure that there are talented, blessed individuals in your program at the university all around this world that are meeting the moment. So just encourage you to embrace it, because you're going to do God's work for a very long time.
Jennifer, I don't know I don't know what kind of technology or science is available here out in the Silicon Valley, but whatever it is, we gotta bottle Steph Curry and Aisha. We gotta put them.
I agree.
We gotta put them. No, I'm telling you now. We gotta put them in some bottle, something. If everybody's got to drink every day, you know.
I got people pouring in my life too, so we'll
Oh, that's
know who to look out
beautiful.
for. Absolutely.
Jennifer, I do want to. You didn't hear it from. I want to go on the record to thank the family that made this possible.
Yes.
The Silk family. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I just want to be sure you.
Okay.
My personal gratitude.
I appreciate that, and I know they will as well. And thank you both so much for sharing your journey.
And also thank Father Paul, who's the president of the University of San Francisco, who has been a great supporter, obviously, of the Institute, but more importantly, he loves Warriors.
Yes, he does. Well, I will definitely thank Father Paul as well. And again, to Steph, to you and Aisha, thank you so much for your generous contribution to USF's Institute of Nonviolence and Social Justice. And thank you both again for your time today. This has been absolutely wonderful to spend time with you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jennifer. Dr. Jones.
Okay, buddy.
Appreciate you guys. Rooting for you as always.
Okay, thank you so much.
You too.
Love
Appreciate
to
it.
family.
My name is Paul Fitzgerald. I'm the president here at the University of San Francisco. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart Steph Curry, Clarence Jones, Jennifer Azzi, who've just led us through an inspiring, a moving, a profound conversation that really takes us to the core of what the University of San Francisco is all about. This conversation in the Silk Speaker Series took place under the auspices of our Institute for Nonviolence and Social Justice, something that Clarence Jones and Jonathan Greenberg founded here at the university to carry forward the inspiring work, the healing work, the liberating work of nonviolence and social justice. This was the genius of Mohandas K. Gandhi. This was the genius of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that true social progress, we can heal the sins of racism, the structural sins of racism, through love, through nonviolent, courageous, fierce love, which seeks to liberate not only those who are oppressed, but also to liberate the oppressors from their false consciousness, their false understanding of what it is to be a human being. Here at the University of San Francisco, I think our ranking this year is number 5. We're the 5th most diverse university in the United States. We are a top 100 university in terms of our academic standing. We have students from all across the country and all around the world. They are brilliant. They come from many different ethnic backgrounds. They come from different religious traditions. And the thing we have in common, the thing that allows us to build the beloved community that we are, is we recognize our noble humanity, the noble humanity which resides in the heart and soul of every member of this university community. In this conversation, we heard very strongly that the way forward for white people is self-examination, solidarity, involvement with people of goodwill who wish to seize this moment of hope, to really carry forward that vision that Dr. King spoke about on that March to Washington, the I Have a Dream speech, but really spoke about every day of his public ministry until the day he was killed. We have hope as the best motivator. Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuits, who founded this university and many others around the world. Towards the end of his spiritual exercises, Ignatius says that love shows itself in deeds above words. So this is really a time for deeds, for action. And Steph Curry has called us and reminded us that now is a time for symbolic prophetic actions. This is a time for us to march for freedom and dignity. Now is a time for us to step forward rather than to step back. Clarence Jones reminded us again and again, that this is about redemptive love. And it reminds me that Dr. King was, of course, an ordained minister, as were Jesse Jackson and Andrew Young and all of the core members of Dr. King's inner circle, with the exception of Clarence Jones, who was the attorney. And that partnership between the law and the church, that partnership between faith and reason, that partnership between what we can really understand with our intellect, investigate and suss out, finds a perfect partner in the intuitive place in our heart where we want to reach out in empathy, in kindness, and in courage. So thank you, Steph, for asking us to be bold, inviting us to step up, inviting us all to take responsibility by having true empathy. So thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I do want to join in thanking Jeff and Naomi Silk for sponsoring this event and for sponsoring the whole Silk Speaker Series, which allows us, but perhaps in no conversation more than in this particular one today, to go to the heart of what our mission is at the University of San Francisco. It is to change the world from here for the better. So thank you all. God bless.